The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hello, George.
Hello, homeless man. Lions, not homeless man. Lions. How's it going?
It's good. It's good.
I don't know why I decided to come out swinging on this one, but here we are.
But I'm afraid to admit to the listening audience what that was a reference to.
They know.
They know. Everybody knows. It's obvious. We wear our hearts on our sleeves or pinned to our arms in my case.
Yeah,
So
lose our shirts a lot.
So, what did we play this week? Or weeks? These weeks? What did we play for this show?
Yes, ActRaiser? Is that am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, quick immediate tangent about that. On the title screen, it's capital A, capital R, ActRaiser, no space.
Right.
On the credits screen, it's capital A, capital R, space, and I've also seen it written with a hyphen. So, I'm gonna go by the title screen because that's like, that's the same as the box art and everything. But
yeah,
I don't honestly know. It could be pronounced Smith, like that old Monty Python sketch. Like I have no idea.
Okay, so we played Smith the game this time. We just need to agree on how to pronounce it for the purposes.
It's ActRaiser.
ActRaiser. Okay, we played ActRaiser. Yeah. It was a game.
Is a game. And I think this is this falls firmly into the camp of only one of us has nostalgia goggles for this, which is me.
Correct.
Right.
Me.
It's me. Yeah. But this is from, I think, a really good time in history and from a development company we have sadly lost. So I don't know if you noticed when the game's booting up, but this is an Enix game.
Well, it's not been it's just been subsumed, you know?
Well, yeah, but I mean, when Square and Enix got together, they became like that couple who's completely insufferable.
I love you more. No, Enix, I love you more. Yeah, no.
Let's go make a bunch of terrible black leather-clad games together. I'm looking at you, Final Fantasy. You suck now.
Yeah, they even managed to make lackluster games for Full Metal Alchemist. And I mean, how do you mess that up?
They already had Final Fantasy. How did they mess that up?
Just fair point.
Yeah. So Enix is they were, I don't want to say they were like a competitor to Square. They were like a contemporary, because they tended to make more like action RPGs, where Square was famous for Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, like very, top-down, turn-based. And I realized playing this game, and we'll talk about this in a few different places, but there were parts where I was just like, this feels more familiar than it should. And then when I realized, I was like, oh, it's an Enix game. It's because there's like these 4 other Enix games that I love. So there's like similar sound effects and similar visuals and things. And like these kind of even design elements, like the health bar that's consistent across several of their games. And I was like, that's kind of nice. Like it's like a brand, right? Like you reach for a game and you're like, oh, it's made by Enix. I know and trust them. And then they made ActRaiser 2, which is freaking terrible.
Well, I've not played that one, nor did I play this one, and I can say safely that this game is very unique to anything that I have played before. Like it's a I would say that this game is a mashup before like mashups became a thing. Like it really does take 2 very disparate types of games and mash them together. So it was a unique experience, and so I'm definitely glad I got to play it.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll go into all this, I think, more in mechanics a little bit, but I think part of what I love about the mashup of the action platformer and then the top-down, like almost SimCity-esque like world builder is the game makes no effort to explain to you that those 2 things are related and really how they're related. Like it's just, this is the game. Sometimes you're a platformer and then other times you're a naked angel person. And you literally are just expected to take that at face value with no hand holding of any kind. And that in and of itself I kind of love, but I can't really. I would love to know if there's other games like ActRaiser, because I've never really done hardcore research. I mean, you know us, like we're gonna do hardcore research right after the show, but like,
Right.
but
Nerds.
nerds with our thick Coke bottle glasses. But I really never heard of or played another game quite like this, where it's like do the sim to become more powerful, then do the platforming part with your now more powerful character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's certainly nothing that I played. I would love to see a game like this done with like the more powerful engines that we have now, because I feel like that, and obviously we'll get into more of this later, but I feel like this game was an amazing start. You know, like I feel like this game is a great proof of concept. You know, where it's like this it shows that this can work, you know, like that these two things don't have to be two different worlds, like they can interplay together, you know. But I'd love to see it, but I mean, like they just did the best they could with the hardware at the time. I'd love to see like the PS4 take a swing at this, you know.
Yeah.
But
Let's
anyways,
let's save that for
yeah,
mechanics. So
visuals.
it looks like things. There are things to look at.
There are.
I love this era. Like I love this particular style of pixel art. It's just I mean, it's super nostalgic to me. It's the second the logo does its god awful mode 7 thing to like zoom into the screen, I was just like, yeah, look at how horrible that is.
I thought that, so, you know, we normally break it up visuals for the sake of visuals and visuals for the sake of gameplay. I thought that the visuals for the sake of visuals, you know, overall, I thought that they were very good. I mean, you know, didn't like I obviously with some of like the fantasy creatures, like you kind of have to guess at what they are, but you know, I like they're fantasy creatures. The one place where I'd say it was a little shaky in kind of a funny way, like not in a fourth wall breaking kind of way. Like I wouldn't have noticed this if I wasn't taking notes, but your avatar when you are mortal or whatever, you know, like when you're platforming, right?
Yeah.
The avatar looks super good. Except for the face. It's like a hit with a meat grinder, you know? Like
Kind of doesn't have a face. He's sort of
exactly.
like he's sort of like a because so when you start a platforming stage, your little soul, I guess, like goes down into a statue of you, and
Which
then
I love, by the way. I
it's
thought that was awesome.
yeah, it's a super fantasy way of doing like the Mega Man entrance. Because then when you beat a boss, you also like you hold up your sword in triumph, and then your soul like leaves the statue, which I kind of love, because that means like anywhere somebody finds a statue of the master means like he just like killed some horrible monster. It's like you build your own monuments.
Yeah. You know, I mean, so which is really actually nice of you as a master. You know, you don't make your people build the monuments, like you build the monuments. And this is like and this strays a little bit into mechanics, but this is like something where I was like, oh, this is amazing, because like when you like bamf down the first time and like inhabit the statue, I'm like, oh my God, because you'll be different statues in every level and different. No,
Nope.
same statue. And that's fine. And it was like one of those things where I was like, no, you can't be mad at the game. Like A, limits of the system in general. B, this game is already of a grand scope. And C, it's just, dude, just shut up. You're fine. You won the $10 million lottery. No, it wasn't the $20 million lottery. Just calm it down. You still don't have to work for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that does actually raise a good point about. I feel like of all games from this era, we always have to give our thumbs up or thumbs down on whether or not they abused palette swapping, and they hardcore abused palette swapping in this. Not to the point where I feel like it is disruptive to the experience, but like every world or every area has its like troll type of enemy, and then some of the later areas have multiple troll types of enemies, and they all like it's super telegraphing, right? So if you see like the red flying troll enemy, he is every single time going to move in the exact same way 100% of the time, like no question. So it does teach you a lot about the world, and I know that this is kind of the point of palette swapping is, oh, when I see that enemy, they're going to behave in this way. But, you know, if all of the troll guys were green and then I had to base how I was going to fight them on like how they moved and how they reacted to my presence, like that would also be okay. I guess it wouldn't look as varied, but maybe just randomly dress them, and then I have to like observe their behavior. I can't just be like, that's the red guy. He's gonna move in a J shape.
Yep. And this is something where like normally we'd hold to say, but I feel that we can't really talk too much about the game without kind of addressing this at the beginning, which is I feel that to a degree, this game is kind of like the place that sells hoagies and wings, where it does both well. It doesn't do either stellarly,
Yeah.
So like that's the thing, is that like if this was it, I would be a lot harsher on the palette swapping if this was a platformer and that's it, because I'd be like, why, come on, stop being lazy. But it's not like, so, yeah, you go through the platforming areas, and yes, there is some palette swapping and that sort of stuff. And then, but then you leave that area and you go to the simulator, to the simulator, and then, like, and that's way different. And so it doesn't stick out as badly to me, just because you immediately have that staunch difference in kind that kind of like kicks it out of your head.
Well, and they are only lazy about it with like the normal boring enemies, like those stupid little troll things. All of the bosses are unique and beautiful. All of the areas are unique and beautiful, even because each area has Act 1, which opens up the area, and then Act 2, which closes the area and allows you to kind of like be ready to go on. And even Act 1 and Act 2 look completely different and have, rich backgrounds that are appropriate to whichever area you're in. So it's like they did this one lazy thing for a reason I understand, and in like the least impactful way possible. But it is something that, like, the longer we've been doing this, the second I see an enemy that's the same enemy but red instead of blue, I'm just like, I'm on to you.
Yes, but I will say though that the all of the, well, most there was some small amount of repeatability, but all of the areas that you platform around in are super unique, and interesting. And so to me, that kind of like drove the idea of like exploration, because when it was like, hey, it's time to do some more platforming, I'm like, ooh, what's this place going to look like? Which actually brings me nicely to one of the things I wanted to touch on, which was when you fight the Minotaur, right? Yeah, you know where I'm going with this?
No, but I just like his mechanics are so weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that that the Minotaur is the enemy that jumps up onto the ceiling, I guess, and then falls down, like that wasn't actually what bothered me. What bothered me is that his background is like
Space.
yes. Where are you? Like because you go underground to fight the Minotaur, like he's in a pit, right? And then you're in space. Like what happened? Okay, I'm like first all of the questions, right? Like, like, is this a space station? Like, is there glass? How come I'm not being sucked out? Excuse me, blown out into space? Like,
thank you for correcting that.
Like, why is the Minotaur, like, why is this a space Minotaur? Like, so I'm sure they did it just because like it looks cool, but I was just kind of like, okay, so what did I do so far? Let's see. Well, I fought a centaur. That's pretty cool. And then I fought a space Minotaur. Wait, that doesn't sound right.
I mean, it's okay. So, I've not only did I finish on this playthrough, but I've finished this game. I've replayed this a lot over the course of my life. But and I know you didn't get to finish it. You were sick this week and life happened. But the last boss, you also like pointlessly fight in space. But I don't think you're actually in what we would think of as space. I think it's like a magical realm, because so when the last boss is basically the worst kind of thing you can do with the last boss, where you just fight all the other bosses.
Yeah, I looked on YouTube and saw that, and a little bit of me was like, I would have rather have been sick than,
right
than dealt with that.
But how cool, to be fair, and to at least try and keep it in the realm of visuals, but like when you're on the little like precipice and there's like the giant statues, and like, or I guess they're just kind of faces, but like it's the face of each boss, And then
Yes.
as you defeat that boss, like the little stone, it's either their eyes or they have like a stone in their forehead or something, and it like shatters. And then
Yeah.
it like goes through the 6 bosses that you refight, because you don't actually refight all of them. You just refight the Act 2 boss. And then you fight the big bad, and the big bad is in space. And
Right.
I really didn't get the impression that you're like in like space because it's like the swirly whooshy, like if it was still, it would look like you were just standing in the sky. But there's like a lot of swooshy kind of effects. I don't know. I'm thinking it's like magic realm. It's the mirror dimension.
Okay, no, hang on. So what it is it's like the astral plane, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So so basically these bad guys can't actually break into our reality. They're attempting to, but until then they are stuck on the astral plane, which their dungeon leads them to, like their astral pocket dimension, which is where you're fighting. Totally legit. It makes sense. And
I'd love this headcanon if the Minotaur and the last boss weren't the only ones with the swooshy space background.
Well,
I mean, we could extrapolate from incomplete data here, like because the wizard guy you fight who turns into the werewolf, like he's just a servant of the evil astral plane monsters, right? So he was part of our reality, and he's helping to like bring in the evil monsters. So he doesn't have a swooshy astral plane background.
Exactly, and you know the pharaoh guy is just the pharaoh, man. That made a giant mechanical pharaoh face to eat you.
So is the giant mechanical pharaoh face a giant mechanical pharaoh face, or is that just what that guy looks like?
That is a face only a mother could love.
I mean, it's made out of gold. Like, he looks fine, but
I don't think that's healthy, right? I mean, I don't know. We've got a mutual friend that's a nurse. We should ask her, like, if your face is predominantly gold.
Let's say like 97% gold. Like, how bad for you is that? Well, also that he's just a giant head.
Yeah, that's also not great. So it's like
that thing probably is some kind of robot. I never really thought about it that deeply before, but it's the one. Okay, let me think. I think that's the only boss that doesn't in any way seem humanoid. Like, because it just looks like somebody cut the top off of a giant sarcophagus.
What about crazy Ferris wheel lava monster?
Demon? Like,
yeah,
you're totally right, but that one is not that one is not attempting to be something of this earth, but that.
Sorry, I just love how we don't have names for any of these, so we're just coming up with like wild descriptors of them.
No, and the problem is, like, I completely undermined my own argument by not remembering the pig head with skewers coming out of it that are on fire. Like,
no, okay, but he's imprisoned in a volcano. So that makes sense. You know, like so he's not like imprisoned in the astral plane. Like, he had been banished into a volcano. So that's why he doesn't get the weird sushi background.
Yeah.
All right.
Or maybe he was like a weak enough demon that they were able to, like, so he is in our reality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously some kind of horrifying monster, because if pighead skewer flame wheel thing is like a normal creature that would be walking around this reality, I don't know that this reality is worth saving.
No, it's Cronenberg world, and you just got to go to a different non-Cronenberg world. But I think that speaks largely to the visuals.
It does, because they're all all of the bosses, even the little crappy Act 1 bosses, are all like beautiful and unique and have like unique mechanics and move differently. There's no repetition there at all.
No. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no repetition, you know, and obviously if we can sit here and I can throw out things like crazy Ferris wheel demon monster, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy. I mean, that speaks, I think, to the uniqueness, and to me, that so obviously discovery is one of like the core aesthetics of this game. And so you know, I mean, the fact that every boss is unique and fun and well, I wouldn't always say fun, but interesting. You certainly helps. As far as visuals in service of gameplay, um, I thought that they served the gameplay relatively well. I will say that, and you normally have key into this a little bit better than I do, so I'm interested to hear your opinion. I think your hitbox is a little too generous in your favor, which kind of messed with me a little bit.
You mean your ability to hit an enemy?
No, enemies' abilities to hit you.
Oh, like you feel like it's smaller than your sprite?
Correct.
So
'Cause
I have a slightly different take on the way the hitboxes work. So go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, no, because there were just a number of times when like something came at me and I would swing and I really felt that I swung too late. And it did feel like it actually passed into my sprite a little bit,
Mm.
but still I hit it and it did not hit me. And so, you know, this feels like something being like, oh, well, like my wallet's too small for my hundreds and my diamond shoes, like, but that being
My
said,
home runs keep turning into grand slams. I don't know how it happens.
and I'm all out of syrup, but no, but so the reason why that messed with me though is because it basically makes for more sloppy platforming kind of level, because like if I, see something come at me and I'm like, oh no, that thing hit me. No, wait, it didn't. It just kind of makes it harder to anticipate and move around the world when your hitbox isn't clear. I would much rather have it be in error this way, where I think that it's larger than it is, as opposed to, like, oh, that didn't hit me, and then the game thinks it hit you. But that being said, it's still a little jarring to have it not line up with your expectation.
Well, because you brace yourself for like, oh, I've been hit. How do I recover? And then the enemy, poofs into their little dust ball, and you're like, oh, I guess I hit him.
Yeah, and it just creates this like weird, like I said, it's jarring, So then you kind of feel as you're going through that it's less a function of your ability to best the bad guys and more a function of whether you randomly lucked out and it didn't wing your hitbox the right way,
Yeah, and this could be a side effect of the way animations are drawn versus how changes in the game engine are actually happening. So you press the attack button, and if the end result of that attack is that the enemy should have died, they may be registering as dead before your animation is like completely registered in your mind. So it's, and I'm sure that that's a hard balance. Like, at what point during the sword swing is the encounter resolved and you are the victor, or you didn't counter fast enough, right? So
right.
The problem I have with the hitbox in this game, and this is, I feel like every time I replay this game, I'm like, oh yeah, this is super annoying. And it's not it's not game breaking, but it does, I'm super aware that it's happening, which is your character is fairly tall. Like you're literally a statue. So you're like this giant, knight, and you can squat down, but you're still pretty big. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you only get to like 60% of your height and not even less than that. Like you're still a pretty big target. The reason it's annoying is because enemies don't have, it's not like high attacks, medium attacks, and low attacks. Like they can actually fire projectiles in like this huge range.
Yes.
And when
I agree with that.
When you're standing, you swing like a samurai, like a chop down, like you were going to cut a person in half. But when you're ducking, you swing across your body, which does actually narrow your hitbox, like or your attack box, like the strike box. So, yeah. So it's completely like there are just times where like I would duck down and a projectile would hit me right in the face. Because the time that they fired last time, it was like 10 pixels higher and it would have gone over my head. But this time they fired from a different point. If it's like a flying enemy, they're like in a different point of their arc. And it's like, it's frustrating because it's only the enemies have that level of like fluidity and flexibility. The player character is incredibly rigid. Everything is very boxy. Like, you can change your jump trajectory in midair, but not well.
Yeah, and that again just kind of speaks to, and we're talking about the visuals. I'm sure it'll come up in gameplay as well, but like just kind of clunky platforming. And again, if this game was a platformer, I'd be like, this game's insufferable and just burn it all to the ground. But it's not a platformer. I even say it's not primarily a platformer because you spend the bulk of your time not platforming. So,
I'd say the platforming is, you probably spend like time wise maybe about close to 50-50. Like it feels pretty balanced. The platforming feels like the thing I have to do to play the sim.
yeah, and we can get more into that in gameplay. One thing I did want to mention was uh, when I was in like the sand world, going through, I think it's Act One,
The desert.
the desert. Hey, no, if I learned anything from Mario, so yeah, but when you're in the desert, right? I'm just like, okay, I'm like, ooh, I wonder who's the boss is gonna be for this one, and it was Sly Halud, the sandworm of Arrakis. May his passing cleanse the world. And I don't know why, like immediately when I saw that, I like rattled that off, and I was just kind of like, and Megan was just kind of like, what? And I was like, it's a thing from Dune. Don't it's fine. It's fine. That was for me. But yeah, no, so I was just kind of like, oh, that's obvious. And so then at that point in the game, I was like, I am on Arrakis. Like, obviously.
Like the whole planet is that planet, not just that area?
No, just that area is Arrakis.
Okay.
Like so then I was just kind of like, well, obviously I need to start looking for spice, but there was no spice.
There was no. And this actually raises an important point, I think. Because the platforming stage is where all of the action is happening, even though the sim part is real time, so like there are enemies and you do have to fight them, and that does all happen in real time. The action part is definitely the platforming stuff. The visuals on the sim side are incredibly boring and redundant, and like there's very little uniqueness, but somehow, like, because it's a sim, I kind of don't care. Like, I'm just like, yeah, houses look like houses, and wheat fields look like wheat fields, and rivers look like rivers, and it's fine. I mean, like, because they're,
looks like a map.
Yeah, exactly. Like the top down view of a sim is like representative of the world. I'm not expecting it to look detailed.
Right.
It wasn't until way later where you expected to be able to zoom in on SimCity and like, read the text message on an individual's phone who was walking down the street. Like that was way later. So the fact that the sim is like boring and repetitive visually, I actually have zero problem with.
Yeah, it didn't. I didn't even think about it until you said it. Although the one visual note I had for the overworld map was, I got a kick out of the animation of people building houses, by which I mean being horrifyingly transformed on the spot into houses, because it's great. Like I said, and this is just totally, I get it. I get that, I was like, oh, this person built a house and raised a family with a bunch of other, and then they went out and raised a bunch of little houses, like whatever,
When you were a baby, I put latent nanobots into your bloodstream, turn into a house.
Come on. You got it this morning, but no. So, but like they basically like run out because it's like town is building, and I'm like, oh, neat. And so the first time I see it, I'm like, people like run out and they like, reach up to the sky. I'm like, oh, are they like? Is there like something I need to do? Because you are their god, or at least I was their god because I named myself God.
Of course you did.
So they run out and they're like, yay, ah, and then they just like turn into a house. And I was like, oh my god. Oh, no,
oh
I mean,
my me.
Yeah. So I just, like I said, and obviously the visual is not itself horrifying. It's just the empty cup in which I am pouring my own horror into. But
well, and your horror cup doth runneth over, because I always thought it was kind of an interesting visual that, because each block is what is it, like 3x3? I think each like little grid block, and some of it has to be road, and so only so much of it can be houses. But there's, depending on which area you are in, there are either large houses or crop fields.
Right.
And you always know when somebody's going to build a large house or a crop field because that transformation must take like a little bit more stealing of the soul because everybody else runs out and when they get to the place they're going to build their house, they immediately get off the road and then like raise their hands to praise, Allah and
Me.
turn it into a house. Like,
Right.
but the wheat field and the big house people, they have to worship like a couple of gods first because they get to their spot on the road and then they have a totally different walk cycle where they march slowly out instead of doing the little like cartoon run that they did to get there. It's like 2 seconds ago, Yakety Sax was playing, and now there's like the sad music from the end of the Incredible Hulk TV show. And then they like transform into a wheat field or they transform into a giant house.
Yeah, and with all with all games like this, again, the animation it is not this horrifying by any means. This is just and nor do I think it like even looking at it now through non-nostalgic eyes, like I don't think that it is horrifying. It's fun because it allows for you to project horror. Like for example, the bats or whatever, when they come in and they like swipe your dudes, to make you want / need to kill them, right? They like come down and they pull up like four dudes, and then like fly off, right? So it's like, no, you lost 4 units of people, right?
Four people units.
Four people units. But okay, but like when it picks them up, right? It picks up one of them, right?
And yes, and the others are clinging to the top one. Yes,
they're desperately trying to save their kinmen as like they are all being ripped from the earth. Yeah.
Yeah. See that? I don't feel like you're projecting a lot of horror onto that. Like that's just pretty upsetting. Well, and then there's the they're kind of like winged I don't know, they almost look like little dragons. The little white dragon things.
Yes.
And they just hover over a house and burn it to the ground with lightning.
Yeah, scorch the earth so that way, and then like
and when they do that, the little skull poof is like this little skull, and it's like people died, and it's like no kidding.
Nah, I puzzled that one out. Like not only did the 4 people in there die, but the one person died meaninglessly now to make the house.
I like so that every residence that has like a mom, a dad, and 2 children is technically a residence of 5, since the residence is a person.
Yes, exactly. No, every house is like inherently haunted, My final note for visuals, I thought that in the action stages they did a really good job telegraphing what is active versus inactive, by which I mean like what is scenery versus what is scenery that can kill you,
Yeah.
For example, at one point I was jumping up platforms that OSHA would just be hard as concrete about, like
the bridge that collapses is what you're talking about.
No, that is also awful, but no, this was just like it was like a stairwell, but there were no stairs, so it was just platforms, which is common in platformers. But I'm just picturing like, OSHA would come in and be like, so not only is there no hand railing, but also there's no actual stairs in this stairwell. You have to leap from one platform to another, and but anyways, I was doing one of those, and there were these kind of gargoyle things off to the side. But the gargoyle things were not the same color as the background, so immediately I was like, those things are going to do something to kill me.
Yeah,
and they did. But yeah, so there were a couple of places like that where like the environment could kind of turn on you, and I felt that every time I keyed into it, mostly they used color, but where I keyed into it, I was like, nope, that thing's going to try to kill me somehow. So I thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is the one place where the visuals consistently frustrated me, and this is incredibly nitpicky, but there's that little part of me that's like a completionist. Like when I was a kid, I was way more of a completionist than I am now, but that nostalgic completionist part of me. So when you go to Desert Land, what's the name of that planet?
Arrakis.
When you go to Arrakis and you Somebody who's never heard of these games would just be like, "What the hell are these assholes talking about?" So when you get to Arrakis, and you have to like bring rain to make all the sand go away so they can live there and be fertile crescent and all like that. Eventually, if I recall correctly, all of the sand is gone and it's just green fields. When you go to the snow place, North Wall, I think, which we will now just call the Wall. When you go to the Wall,
When you go north of the wall,
when you go north of the Wall,
to North Wall.
yeah, I mean it's right there in the name. It does what it says on the tin.
Exactly.
Yeah, so when you go north of the Wall, and you melt all the snow, there's like these super hard edges where there's snow and then like green fields and everything's fine. And this is like a super dad reference because I have 2 small children, but in the new Tinkerbell movies, the world they live in is where seasons come from.
Right.
So there are hard barriers. Like you can literally like where you're standing is summer, and then you walk like 2 feet, and now you are into like winterland. So there's like these super hard barriers, and I'm like when I got to North Wall and I started like melting away the snow, and now there's these like mountains covered in snow, and then like right up to the edge of the green fields there's still snow. It's just like, come on, y'all. Like, and then when you go to the, I can't remember the name of the swampy place, but there's a place that has like all this marshland that you have to like evaporate the marsh away, and there are some marsh tiles mingled in with normal tiles that for some reason you cannot evaporate away. And it just drives me insane because it's like, I can't build there. I can't build a road there. I have no reason to care that that's still marsh, but it's still marsh.
Marsh, I need it not to be. Yeah, so no, I like the idea though that you go north of the wall, and then like there are certain areas that you can like you turn into green patchy area, and then other areas that stay that you can't, and those are John's.
Those are John's.
Well, they're Jon Snow.
Yeah, no, I get it.
like dude, right when you said no, I was just kind of like, wait, just no, let him talk about the game thing, and then say your dumb joke. Anyways, but no, I mean, I think you could definitely, say, but by the time I got there, I was an Eskimo because I was super into it.
I feel like anytime snow or cold comes up in your life from now on, you're gonna be like, how can I work this joke in?
Especially, like when I'm in my 50s and my grandchildren are like, we never saw that show, Granddad. It's not funny anymore.
Stop, Granddad, stop. Okay, so I've been desperately waiting since the moment we chose this game to talk about the music with you. Where to put this into context, just so you understand what my life has been like for the last 2 weeks, I actually multiple times had to delete messages that I was typing to you where I was asking like if you had noticed yet.
Nice.
Because I was like, there's a really good chance that the reveal when we actually discuss it won't be like a spectacular moment, but I can't, like, that plant will never get to flower if I salt the earth right now with this stupid message in Hangouts. So I have to just hope and pray to the master that when we get there, I am rewarded for my patience. So tell me.
I'm pretty sure I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Did you notice the music in this game?
I did notice the music in this game. I totally did. And it okay, so yes, yeah.
Where do you know it from?
Know it from Extra History.
Yes.
Purple gets the square. No, and I will have you know that I would not have gotten there if not for my loving wife, because so I'm like playing, and so you play through the first platforming area, and then you play like it goes to the overworld, right? And it goes do 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 do, and I was like, wait, what? And I was like, no, this is from something. What is it from? But I couldn't get my mind out of video games, so I was just like running through every video game I could think of. I was like, no, and I actually I pulled out my phone and like used Google to be
Oh,
like,
did you try and
tell
like
me what.
Shazam it?
Yeah, I was like, tell me what this is from. And they're like, it's from ActRaiser. I'm like, son of a, like. So that wasn't helpful at all. And so I was like, oh no. And so then, luckily, because God loves me, when I was watching the very last bit of it, because I wasn't able to finish, I'm sitting down with my computer and watching like the overworld bit, and Megan walked in and goes, "Oh, that's the music from that show you like, Extra History." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And I said, like, oh my God. So then immediately I was just kind of like, okay, wait. Do they know that? So then I immediately jumped over to Extra History, and I like did the expand view, and they're like, for the intro music, go here. And I click on it, and I swear to God, it's just ActRaiser YouTube. And it's just like, this is me. I was like, there it is. It's all, everything's coming up, George. It's all coming together.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually came to it from the other direction, which is stupid because I've played this game like 20 times over the course of my life. I would actually catch myself humming that little like melody because it's just one of those melodies that like sticks in your head. And
Yeah.
I kind of, once you've been like whistling a tune for long enough in your life, you really forget the source material.
Oh yeah.
And then
absolutely.
because I started watching Extra History, I don't know, a few years ago, like I occasionally, when there's a new episode, like I would hear that music again, which would put it back on the forefront of my mind. And then one day I just was like, what the hell is this from? Like I was watching an episode and I was just like, I know this music is not unique to this show because it is way too deeply ingrained in my psyche. And then I just went into the YouTube comments. I didn't even think to freaking expand the description and see if they gave it attribution. Of course they did. They're good people. But like I just went in the YouTube comments, and like fourth comment down on this video was like, what is that theme music? And then reply, ActRaiser. And I was like, it's ActRaiser.
There it is. Yeah, no, I'm so glad that Megan kind of tossed that out there, because it's just one of those things where it's like when you see somebody in a movie before IMDb and you're like, where is that guy from? And you just can't ever get it out of your mind. It was like that, but music.
Yeah.
No, it would have driven me off the wall, but Megan picked it up immediately because yeah, but no, that was actually so I'm glad that we had this exchange, but I'm a little bummed because that's like my big music note. I just got in all caps, Extra History uses this.
Yeah, no, in my notes, I have in all caps, George, did you notice the music? Did you notice?
Did you? So part of me wants to just like move on from music at this point because I don't think we're going to top this. But
yeah, we definitely won't.
Yeah, but that being said, one of the things I noticed, and you can probably explain this better than I can, which is it feels like the sound effects were straight up ripped from Gradius. Which is weird because Gradius is Konami and this is an NX game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to how many sounds the Super Nintendo could produce. But that being said, like different studios were known for kind of drawing from the same palette, right? Like Enix games tend to sound like Enix games, and Capcom games tend to sound like Capcom games, but there's going to be some intermingling, especially if they're relying on a neighboring part of the spectrum. Like they might have some overlap. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you played Gradius a lot more than I did, so I'll have to take your word for it on whether or not they had overlap. But yeah, I mean, it's a limited palette, so.
Yeah, because like one of the things I noticed, and if you have a chance to, because I mean, this is obviously a game you've gone back and played a number of times. So if you happen to go back and play it again, so like when they're destroying like an enemy summoning circle, right? That is the same sound that it makes when your shield is taking damage in Gradius.
The like ding ding ding. It's almost like a hammer on an anvil kind of sound. Yeah. Crap, you're right.
Yeah. So that when you destroy a forest, that's the same thing as like when you're destroying like a shield on a bad guy, like that like that kind of sound. And then also destroying a bad guy, like when you're platforming. So like when you destroy a bad guy and he explodes, because that's a thing that happened. That like kind of like exploding noise is the exact same exploding noise as bad guys in Gradius.
So I'm gonna wildly speculate here and
Go
say
for it.
it's possible that even at this time in history, when games were made by a much, 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 much smaller group of people, that there may have been things that people either outsourced or that they just literally bought wholesale. So like,
Right.
I need sound effects. So I'm going to go to a company that is known for having great sound effects, and I'm going to give them X amount of dollars to license a bunch of their sound effects to use in my game.
And
That wouldn't surprise me at all if that kind of thing happened, because it's like, yeah, we could hire a sound designer to make all these sounds, but we need like an explodey sound. We need like a fighting sound, like damage is being done. Like those sounds already exist, so we'll just go out and like source them. But then at the same time, like I don't know exactly how that would work from a business perspective, because I would say that a lot of these sound effects sound exactly like Soul Blazer, which is an Enix game. So like maybe they were buying from a similar pool, but then once you had them, you could use them forever. It's not like modern licensing. Like you bought a tool, and then if somebody else also had that tool, you just both had the same tool.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because, like I said, right when I heard it, I was just like these because, like you said, I played Gradius a fair amount, so those sound effects are very ingrained in my mind. So when I heard them again, I was like, these are exactly the same. Immediately what I thought was just like, were there like sound engines basically? Like, is this like Unreal but with sound?
I honestly, I've never heard of that. I don't think so, because this is more like how a really talented musician can tell the difference between like, oh, that's a Fender Telecaster. Oh, that's a Fender Stratocaster. Like, I have no idea how a person could tell the difference between like two models of electric guitar, but supposedly there are people who can, right? Because like I can tell the difference between like a violin and a cello, but that's because they're different freaking instruments. But the thing is with like consoles of this era, like the Super Nintendo is an instrument. It had a sound card that was capable of producing, however many sounds. And the Genesis had a different sound card, which could produce different sounds. And even though there was some overlap, there were sounds you could only produce on Super Nintendo, and there were sounds you could only produce on the Genesis. So if you heard one of those noises, it was a pretty safe bet which system it came from. So I don't think it's quite like visual graphics engines and physics engines of the modern day. I could be wrong. I know a guy who does some chiptune music, so I kind of want to ask him.
Yeah, like I said, it was so bizarre because initially I was just like, oh, these are obviously the same sound effects. That's fine. But then when I was like, no, but this isn't the same studio, so that's odd.
I'm thinking like a licensing or like a purchasing deal feels more likely to me based on what I know. So like whoever made them originally. So let's say Konami made them. That Enix was just like, hey, Konami, here's money, give us a bunch of your sound effects, and we're just going to use them as is. Like, we're not going to use them as a base. We're just literally going to take those WAV files and shove them into our game.
Well, how about this? What we'll go ahead and do is when we sign off, we'll go ahead and do some more legwork, and we'll post the results of our research in the show notes.
Yeah, there'll be a white paper up along with all the other white papers for the show.
Absolutely.
I did. So one other musical thing we have to address, which unfortunately is at the complete opposite end of the spectrum from being excited to notice the Extra Histories music, is how freaking awful is the Sky Palace music.
Okay, so all right, so here's the thing. It's not great, and this actually strays a little bit into mechanics. I didn't notice the Sky Palace music so much because whenever I was there, I was stooped in menus, and I swear to God, if it told me one more time how to use the menus, I was going to murder that little imp, whatever the hell he is, that cherub. Like I was like, all right, man, you want to move the castle? You move the castle this way. Hey, man, you want to use rain? Did you know that rain can do these things? I'm like, yes. So So to be fair, that's why I was just
Well, because
like
all
you're like
you could hear was your own heartbeat in your ears pounding. It sounds like.
actually all I could hear is the doom music like playing like dun, 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 like because that was the harbinger of me like rage quitting the world. But no, so but yeah, I vaguely all I can hear right now is extra history. That's all I can hear in my head.
It's just loud generic church organs. Like it's just
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's like the stereotypical music you would expect to hear in any game when you enter a church. And it's just
Right.
but it's so loud and it's so grating because like when you're down in an area, it's like the soft like do 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 do, and then you're like, okay, now I'm gonna go fight monsters. I have to go up to the Sky Palace to get to that menu because I have to see the cool Mode 7 animation where I spin down into the world. And so you've just had this like delightful little jaunty tune, and then you go up and it's just like organ, 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 organ. It's like, oh God, I hate it. Like the juxtaposition makes it so much worse, but even in isolation, it's just so bad. And it's the only music in the game that I hate because the levels all have generic but like theme appropriate music. Like kind of how to feel, and they feel like they fit the aesthetic. And like when you're in the temple there or the pyramid, there's this kind of like slow, like there's not a lot of instruments, the melody's pretty vague, and then when you're in other areas it's more like aggressive and exciting, and even though they're not particularly hummable to me, they're like appropriate. But when you go up to the Sky Palace, like every time I'm just like, what is the minimum number of time I can spend here to not have to hear this music?
Units.
Oh God, it's awful.
See, now, well, two things. One is that that Mode 7 like spinning into the earth thing, right? Like
which has a cool little musical cue.
It does. But my only real reference for that is from Contra when you do the exact same thing like on the top down worlds, right? And so like that was emotionally discordant for me because it was like, let's go down to the world. And I was like, no. And then the one other thing was now just in my head because I can't. So all I can hear is the amazing extra credits music, right? And now
I feel really bad for whoever composed this, that we are giving credit for it to the people who stole it.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But and to all of our listeners, extra credits is awesome. Go check that out. They're good at what they do.
Super
but but now I'm just picturing in my head, so you go back up to the Sky Palace and it is the Doom music, from 2016 Doom, because that would be just like in my mind as discordant, from like instead of from a volume standpoint. So it's just kind of like do 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 dun, 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 dun. And like yeah, man, no, let's go down to earth. Let's help these people. Do you need help?
You'd have to go into a very different statue for that
to anyways, but yeah, any other notes on sound?
Honestly, this is one of those things where I always have a mix of like feeling bad and feeling good about saying like it was inoffensive.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are sounds and there is music, and all of it when you're playing the game absolutely serves the game. Like when you swing your sword, you kind of go, it's like a guttural like ha, kind of like I'm swinging, I'm attacking noise, ha 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 ha. But
right.
It's got kind of like this cool like echo effect on it. And
yeah,
you are the only thing that makes that sound that has like an echoey effect on it, which is kind of like, oh yeah, because you're like this like heavenly spirit that's inhabiting this statue. So of course your voice wouldn't sound normal. And then like everything else that makes noise makes like a full throated noise, right? Like it's not echoey. Right. It doesn't feel distant. So like there's some little polishes that are like really good, but not a lot that like super stands out. Like the explodey noise when you use like some of your magic, or when you do some of like the natural disasters, like they're pleasant. They're just I don't know. They're just like okay, like B plus. Like you did your job.
And I see that's like I think that the music is way more important for games that are based around immersion, you know? Um, and this is not that. This is not an immersive game, like at least not in those platforming stages. You know, this is like much more like play with the mechanics, see how it goes. So yeah, no, I mean, I'd agree. Aside from if it wasn't for the fact that a web series that I watch regularly had the overworld music, I would have been like, yeah, it's overworld music. It's like a pan flute. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I do wonder, because you know we both know some musicians and musical people. Like, I kind of wonder what, like, if you went to the person who did the scoring for this and you said like, yeah, I enjoy the music when it is literally in my ears, and then I think about it never again. Like the second I put the controller down, like it's gone from my brain. Couldn't gun to my head, couldn't hum a single tune except the overworld or the sim music because it's awesome.
Yeah.
But like I don't know how people would feel about that. Like, do they want it to be kind of in the background and you just sort of enjoy it, or is everybody trying to write the song to Super Mario Brothers that is stuck in everyone's head for the rest of time? Like I don't know what, and I'm sure it's different from composer to composer, but like I don't know what the goal was in this game, but the thing that they did was that the music is really good in the moment and then I forget about it forever. Like when I'm in the sim and I just left the pyramid, I'm not thinking about the pyramid music because I'm not in the pyramid anymore. And to me, that is the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a game like this, you know, like I would say that, yeah, I mean, like if it had super memorable music, that would be kind of neat, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like it would fit in this type of game. I can't really describe why, so I'll reflect on that. I will actually reflect on that and see if I can think of something. So in later episodes, we can be like, oh, we now understand this thing. But
we've grown as people. I mean, the songs. So there's two pieces of music you hear repetitiously besides the Sky Palace music. So the overworld music is always the same. The extra credits, and then the big bad boss music is always the same. So you do hear those two pieces of music consistently, and I like the extra credits music. So like I do walk around humming that the way I would hum like Super Mario Brothers. And the boss music I feel like is on the tip of my tongue. Like I can almost remember it, but I'm not positive I could. I mean, it's not really the kind of music you hum. It's not like melody music, but it's. So it's like the songs you hear repetitiously do kind of stick in my brain a little bit, but I still don't necessarily want that. Like when I'm south of the wall, I don't want to be still thinking of north of the wall music.
That is legit. No, when you are south of the wall, you don't want to think about north of the wall.
Oh God, no.
So for mechanics, gameplay, all that fun stuff. The first note off the top that I have is. And I will say that, like, overall, mechanically, I found this game engaging and challenging. Here are things I didn't like about it. Thing the first. Okay.
Here's what they did wrong.
Here's why it's a poopy bad thing. So
yeah, you knew what I was talking about.
Okay. So I like the idea that you can fly around in your God Sky Palace and like go to different areas. That's totally neat and cool. If there is only one place I can go in the beginning, let me only go to that place. Like, don't put me in a Ferrari and then say you're only allowed to drive it around the garage, because like I got hopped up in my Sky Palace and they were like, oh, hey, check it out. Here's Fillmore, man. You wanna come hang out in Fillmore? I'm like, nah, man. To hell with Fillmore. I'm fucking authority. I'm God, So like I went over to Bloodpool. I was like, yeah, Bloodpool. Let's hang. Let's get to know each other. I want to know you, man. Like what's going on with you? It's like, nah, man. Level 2. I was like, fine, man. You're not picking up what I'm selling. That's totally cool. I'm gonna go north because you don't own me, and I'm a strong, independent black woman, And so like I go north. And it's like, nah, man. Level 11. I'm like, is this I've got to go to Fillmore, don't I? Like I've just wasted 5 minutes exploring this world that I can't explore. So that was my first gripe. Was it's just like just lock me in that area, or just start me in Fillmore and be like, this is the thing, and then give me the keys to my pimp Sky Ferrari.
Well, and to kind of expand on that gripe, one of the things about this game that I find frustrating is there is so much text and so much of it is repetition.
Yes.
And so for you, for like first time out of the gate, you're like, because the first thing you're supposed to do is get explained that you're God, essentially. And then you immediately go to a platforming stage because it's always act 1 to unlock an area and then act 2 to finish the area. And so for your first experience to be constantly scrolling through the same text box that says nope, nope, nobody, nope, 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 like that's not a great first user experience. And the funny thing is, when you mentioned to me that this was happening to you, I was like, I don't know if I ever tried to go anywhere else first. And I mean, like maybe the first couple times I played, I tried that, but I was just like, I'm already hovering over an area, so I guess I'll start here. Like it didn't even occur to me. And then it obviously didn't even occur to the designers if the way they steer you back toward Fillmore is through just endless repetitive walls of text.
Yeah, where it's just like, nope, you can't do that. It's oh my God, you know what it is? It's totally when you go out with like a group of people or whomever, and it's like, hey man, where you want to go to eat? It's like, man, I'm good for anything. Where do you want to go to eat? And it's like, I don't know, man. You feeling some pizza? No. Okay. No, that's cool too. Like maybe some Chinese. No. What do you want to eat? No, man, you pick.
I'm down for anything. I'm easy. No, you're not.
You're not. You're being a pain in my ass.
I'm talking to you, everyone. Do not act like you will eat anything unless literally anything I list is an acceptable thing for you to eat.
Yeah. So yeah, there was that. I mentioned the insane repetition of having to read text, because it's just kind of like, like, all right, man, let's use some lightning. Did you know that lightning can be used to destroy shrubs and bushes? Yeah. I did.
Yes.
That's why I'm trying to use it.
Exactly.
Sweet.
Like the last 20 times.
And it wasn't right the first time. Why would it be right the next 20 times? Yeah, no, that.
Well, especially because like when you get to Arrakis, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to read that rain text 45 times because there's 45 tiles I have to hydrate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, oh my God. So that was mildly frustrating. One note that I have, and this is something that games to this day suffer for, but so I don't fault the game for it. But if it is impossible for me to do an action, don't fucking put it on my UI. Okay? Don't do it. Like, if I lack the magical ability to cause an earthquake, don't put earthquake on there. There's no need for it, because I was like, oh man, earthquake, I want to get in on that jazz. It's like, nah, you need like 140 spell points in order to do that. I'm like, well, I have 10. So it's going to be a little bit before I can ever do this, but thanks for dangling that in front of
don't
me.
even let me know this is a thing I can't do.
Yeah, because when you're going through a menu, you have to look at all of the menu options. If not, then if you miss something, that's on you. Or
gray it out. Don't let me select it, but let me know that eventually one day.
Yeah, like ooh. Yeah, like ooh, later on you'll get to do this super fun, sexy thing, but you're not powerful enough God yet. I'd be like, yeah, man, that's super fine, but like just making it a thing, and then again, so I feel like this game suffers from that. That's kind of like one of the things this game suffers from is that they don't do a great job always guiding you. Their guiding is allowing you to run full force into a brick wall,
Yeah.
So
the limits, there aren't any. They're like, go ahead and hurt yourself. Like,
yeah, just keep trying. Nope. Try it. Nope. It's like, so. And again, like if I thought the game wasn't enjoyable, I would say it. Like I did enjoy it and have fun, but the places where it falls short are not so much so that it causes, I think, an overall impact or hamstringing of the game, but they are so stark.
Oh, yeah, the rough edges are rough.
Yeah, no, like the rough edges are like knives. It's like strapping knives to the end of your table.
Well, so there's the menu thing. There's a lot of places the menu falls down. The repetitive text, I think, is the most aggressive one. But there's another place where, to kind of expand on, like, don't put this thing in my menu if I can't do it, I would counter that with, don't put a thing in my menu that I have to do. Just do it. And that's with taking the offering.
Oh yeah.
Because like you're flying around and they're like, oh, my master, I know this is unexpected. That's another block of text you see a billion goddamn times. But he's like,
I know this is unexpected. No, it's expected now.
Yeah. You know how I know it's expected? Because I bet from the ground they can see the Sky Palace.
Yeah.
I bet they are expecting me to continue commanding you, my angel, to continue killing monsters. Also, I literally just told them which direction to build the town in. They know I'm here.
Yeah.
This is not unexpected. Anyway. So it's like, oh, we have this offering for you. You have to go and take it. There's a menu item to take offerings from the people. No, when they offer it to me, just put it in my inventory. And then when I want it, I will go looking for it. And I'll bet if you're particularly pedantic right now, you're thinking, but wait, you have a limited inventory size. Why? Why do I have a limited inventory size?
I'm God.
No, it doesn't impact the game at all. Yeah. Like there is no point in the game where it's like, oh, am I going to go into battle with this or with that? No, the limited inventory is literally just a thing they decided. Your inventory could be freaking unlimited. I mean, like, within reason, but like there's no reason for them to have built it this way. They could just, when they tell you they're offering you something, it just goes into your inventory.
So this is 100% not what they intended, but I like a little bit what happens, which is what this causes is like, so it's like, sure, I know this was unexpected. It's like, yeah, well, it was a little expected because the only time that your happy ass sits down and smiles at me like you're pooping is when this is happening. So like I've had a kid, man. I know that look.
Yeah,
of
I was gonna say that is a parent reference. If I've ever like, no one who hasn't raised small children would ever be like, why did he go to that analogy? Whereas anyone who's had a toddler is like, yep, I feel you.
Yep. No, when all of a sudden like they just start staring at you blankly, and you're like, are you pooping? And they're like, yeah. It's like, yeah, you are. I mean, it's fine. Nobody poops but you. But anyway, so the poopy angel, looks at you and is like, "Hey, didn't know if you knew this, but your people have to give you something that you don't really care about, but they're super into." And so you then have to come down from heaven and like, so I imagine they come into there, "My master, we have something to give you," and you're like, "What?" They're like, "We have something for you. Put it on the table, please. Accept this with our humble leave." It makes you the shallow god that just has no patience for the people that he or she like oversees,
Well, and I mean, if you think about the story elements that are going along with these mechanics, so you're overseeing the angel, right? You're directing the angel to do things, and then the angel's like, "Hey, they have a gift for you," and it's like, "Oh, okay." So then you enter into that conversation. You cannot choose to enter into that conversation. So you're dragged by your angel to the temple to have this conversation. And they're like, "Oh, hey, we found a magic statue. It's totally yours. Like, we want you to have it. I mean, it's your god. Like, it's yours anyway. Everything's yours. We're yours. The monster's yours. Everything's yours. But this is specifically yours." And it's like, okay, I'm gonna walk outside. If you could leave this on the table and also be ready to worship me when I decide to come back and get it, that would be awesome. And then you leave, and then most of the time you immediately come right back and are like, and then they drop to their knees and they're like, "My master, what of our offerings do you want to pick from?" And it's like, the one you just told me about.
It's like
that one.
Yeah, like you, the imperial you, as in you all are so stupid. Do you have any idea how tiny you are compared to me? Like it totally. This is how gods go off the rails. Is and they're they're trying so hard. Like they just so desperately want to make you happy by transforming into houses. And like you just no matter what they do, like they just can't seem to do it right. They're like, please take my flesh, turn it into a house. And you're like, stop being weird. Like,
stop making me do this.
So yeah, so that mechanic was weird.
And the reason that I find that mechanic to be particularly frustrating is because there's another mechanic that I really like, which is that the sim you feel very separated from it. Like you're directing the angel, you don't actually build stuff, you tell them which direction to build in.
Right.
Which I kind of like, because it's like, I'm not building your houses. I'm just telling you to build in that direction, and then I'm giving you the latent nanobots to transform into a house. But I'm not going to tell you where to build that house. Like, you just you build northward, now build eastward. Like I kind of like that separation, because it reinforces that you are the master. Whereas when you go into the shrine and they're talking to you, that feels like, oh, these are the leaders of Fillmore. These are the leaders of Bloodpool or whatever. Like, I have a direct relationship with them. I speak directly to them. Like, this is not through the angel. This is like they are literally praying and hearing the voice of the master, and the master speaks directly to them, which makes them feel special. And it makes those conversations where, like, when Teddy goes missing, how was that weird for you, by the way?
Yes. Yeah.
So like when Teddy goes missing and you have to like go and save, Teddy, or like when in one of them, is it in Bloodpool? In one of the areas that one of the leaders dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like there's like, you feel like you're building this kind of relationship with them, but that text is delivered in exactly the same way as all the annoying text. So like it just takes some of the luster off, which sucks, because that's like a really cool part of the game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. I like that but I do like what you said, where you kind of like give them semi-vague directions, because that also feels a little bit more divine, because one of the things I often that I often discuss with people is that, there are some universes where like so let's say Dungeons and Dragons, for example, right? Like, I was talking about like the mechanic of destroy, because there are spells that can like seal somebody's soul away, right? And people are like, oh man, that sucks. I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit more offensive than what you're thinking of, because in our universe we have the idea of a soul and the idea of like deific people, characters, what have you, right? But and there are people who absolutely believe that those are physical, tangible things, like that God is a tangible entity that exists, and that's entirely fine, right? But there's no like hard proof of it, right? But in D&D, there is absolutely, like, these gods exist, souls exist. This isn't up for question. This is a fact.
The afterlife is a thing. The pantheon is real. They have names and faces that you can all agree on.
Exactly. So, so when you say I've, trapped their soul away, it's like, no, that's awful, because the afterlife actually exists and you are preventing them from getting to heaven, basically, that's deeply awful, So I always think, like, in games like this, where basically you are a deific character, it's like, in these people, this isn't, like in our world, it's like, oh, I heard a message of God. It's like, no, I'm in a flying sky temple. Like I exist. But at the same point in time, I do still like the idea of giving vague instructions, because it's not like God is saying like do this specific thing in this order. It's like, no, so it's more like God's will. It's like God's will that we expand our territory into this area, so on and so forth. And I kind of like that. That feels more divine than God. God's not a micromanager, like he's not going to come in and be like, hey, Steve, stop making bad houses, go make good houses. And Steve's like, oh man, come on.
Well, funny you should say that. So there's two things I want to make sure get crossed off my notes list, but then there's like this kind of broader how you exist in this universe that I want to dig in on some more. And like, you've laid a really good foundation, so don't forget about that foundation. But the mechanic you just alluded to is, there's 3 levels of civilization, right? So there's like the first crappy huts, Then there's like nicer houses and then the nicest houses, and each area goes through that progression. You can get a higher population by destroying the lower level houses. So while you don't specifically intervene in every facet of their lives, you can and are actually encouraged to do so because the population is how your level goes up. You can actually be like, that hut does not look nearly as good as the mansion next door. Lightning bolt. And
oh God. Totally by accident.
yeah. Oh, look what happened. Don't build another hut though.
Yeah. Funny. So this is tangentially related, but I love this story so much because it's just so awful. And in his game related is so Masters of Orion 2. I know I've told you this before, but one of the awesome things that you can do is you can terraform planets, right?
Yeah.
And so you can make it like the so it can be the most densely populated planet that ever planeted, right? And that's what you want, right? But the thing is, toxic planets you can't do that to, right? But what you can do is let an enemy come in, take over your planet, then destroy the planet, so that way it forms an asteroid belt, then pull the asteroid belt together to make it into an artificial planet, and then terraform that. So like literally I've gone up to my enemies and been like, hey man, that free planet. You want a free planet? Here's a free planet. Oh no, well, what happened? So it's
which is funny because that genocide only has to happen because they don't allow you to target planets that aren't inhabited. Right. And I'm sure that was not an intentional choice on the designer's part, but when you frame it that way, like you're a product person, you're writing like user stories, and you're like, as a user, I should, as an overlord, I should only be able to fire this planet destroyer at planets that are inhabited. And it's like, wait, why?
Yeah.
Why can you only fire it when people will die? And it's like, I don't know. We don't have time to change it.
Yeah, because I still remember Alderaan. Do you? But hashtag don't forget. But no. Like, yeah, so anyways, but yeah, that has a very similar feel to what you're describing, where you're just kind of like, oh, hey, so there's like a thunderstorm coming that I made. You should evacuate, except for the fifth person of your 4-person nuclear household.
Well, I mean, and you mentioned the earthquake. This is actually the primary use of the earthquake, is because level 1 and level 2 houses are leveled by the earthquake. Level 3 houses are not. So like one.
Oh my God, it's like a biological weapon.
Yes. So once you unlock, once you have enough SP to use the earthquake, the very first thing you do when you're on like your 20th replay of this game is go back to Fillmore and cause an earthquake. Yeah, I mean it has one story use where you have to use it to do something in the story where like it connects these two land masses, and then every other time you use the earthquake is because you don't want to burn houses down individually with lightning.
Yeah, that's pretty monstrous.
Yeah,
but
it's awesome, super efficient, because then they build better houses. I mean, and people,
that'll learn them,
and people die.
Yeah, got to break a few eggs. But what was the other thing?
So the other thing I want to ask you about is the magic. So you get, there's three spells, I think. There's the fireball, there's the shooting star, and then there's like I think it's called like the magic mirror or something. I don't know. It's like a swooshy magic ball thing. To me, in my mind, you get the shooting star entirely too early, because the minute you get it, every boss fight becomes pressing the magic button until the boss is dead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that I was just kind of, because I was just kind of like, oh, I'll use this. Oh, this has made fighting bosses obsolete.
Yeah. So I will, in the designer's defense, I will say that this is the reason that the final boss is all the bosses, because you don't have enough magic to do that 6 times in a row.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I could feel that. I mean, like, that's not amazing game design. It's more of like an FU to the player, but
it's like you're going to fight these bosses.
Yeah, no, that's because like I have kind of mixed feelings about stuff like that, because it's like if you create a mechanic that the player can exploit, you should expect them to exploit it And this kind of feels like no, man, I made nice monsters. You got to fight them. And it's like, then make them fight them the first time. Like don't put this spell in the game. Like
Yeah.
you don't,
Yeah, and because I mean, it does. Like once you get that magic, why would you use any other magic?
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of platform through the level. Like there might as well not be a boss at that point.
Yeah.
Like you just platform through the level, and then you see a boss, and you're like, oh well, I'm sure that's pretty interesting. Dead.
Yeah, magic, and scene.
Yeah.
So I had some other random notes, but the main thing I want to expand on is what you started with. Like what's the nature of your relationship to these people? So I know you had to watch the ending. Did you follow that closely?
No, God, honestly, dude, there was so much text.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so when it was just kind of like, text, story, I was just kind of like, what? I mean, just like a true deific character, I was just kind of like, I can't listen to all of this stuff you people are constantly throwing at me.
Okay, so let's lay out all the things we know. You are a deity, but you're not God in like the Christian sense. You're not the all-powerful one true God. You're never even called God. You're just called the Master.
Right.
And then
I was called God.
Well, yeah. But I mean the angel refers to you by your name. Well, it's like in my case it says Sir Lions, and in your case it must have said Sir God, which is weird.
It did. No, because I don't just want to be called God. I'm Mr. God.
please, Mr. God is my father. But yeah, so there's like, they don't set up the premise that you're all powerful or even that you're God, just that you're like, you are powerful and that people need you. And the more worshipers you have, the more powerful you become, which is why you want to build up stronger civilizations so that you can fight stronger and stronger monsters. So that's like the basic premise. And that's why people worship you, because you literally came down to Earth and destroyed monsters and allowed civilization to exist. Again, that's not a belief people have. They saw you do it. Right? So there's that. And then at the end of the game, you do kind of like an epilogue where you like go to each area, and the angel is kind of nostalgic and is like, oh, remember when we were here and that kid almost died? Oh, remember when we were here and these people invented music? That was cool. And like you go to the last place and you do a like, let us listen, where you look in the temple and the people are gone. And the angel has this little exposition about how like, now that the world is peaceful, they're probably not going to worship you anymore. So how about that? And one of the lines, I actually wrote it down verbatim, is maybe people are happiest when they don't need help from their master.
Okay, so yes, no, I love that. And actually that's kind of that is supported mechanically, because that's actually a note that I have. Is so when they first were like, in the very first town, there are these, portals that spawn monsters, right? And so I was like, man, just go ice these monsters. Who cares, right? And then, but it's like, no, you have to build roads out so that way the people can go deal with the monsters, right? All of the problems that exist in this world, you personally have the power to just straight up fix, But the game incentivizes you, instead of straight up fixing it, making it so the villagers can fix it themselves,
Yes.
Especially with like the monsters and things like that. It's basically kind of like an analog for parenting, which is kind of an analog for, deities, right? So no, I really like that's kind of like the end where it's like, hey, maybe people are happiest when they're self-sufficient, because this is what we've been teaching you mechanically the whole time. And it's not often that games are mechanically and storyboard wise in sync, and so that is actually kind of an awesome master stroke.
It's really amazing. But every time whenever you get to play as a player a deific character, and then the end result is kind of the dismantling of the pantheon that you are a part of, or maybe even the head of, that always makes me question, like, is the lesson of this game that religion is bad? Or is the lesson of this game that like people are only religious, like because you wake up at the beginning of the game, you wake up because the few people that are remaining worship you because they need help to fight the monsters. So is it like only miserable, like downtrodden and oh god, what's the word, like oppressed groups have a need of religion? Like, so is this like pro religion, like people are religious at the right times for the right reasons, or is this anti religion, people are religious at the right times for their own selfish right reasons?
I mean, I think you could definitely read into either one. The way I prefer to look at it is from a more like personal journey, which is to say, like, so like you are this deific character, right? So the idea is that you come across the world, you wake up, what have you, right? So you come into being, right? And you see a situation that is in need of fixing, and your goal isn't to fix it and make people dependent. Your goal is to fix people and make them independent. And then you spend a tremendous amount of time, effort, energy, and personal resources, sweat, blood, and tears in order to accomplish this goal. And then your reward is that you get to die. You know,
Well,
like that.
you just like go away.
Well, yeah, but no, but that's what I'm saying though. Is it like to me like it's more of like an analog for life, you know, because like we as people and especially as like storytellers, like we like the idea of like, and then I lived on forever and immortal, you know, like whatever. It's like
They
no,
live happily ever after.
yeah, what you're going to do is, and this is going to get a little deep, but like it's like what you're going to do is you're gonna go into a situation, right? You're going to work your entire life to make it better, and then you're gonna die, and then that's gonna be the end of it, you know? So like that, but I like that as like a lesson instead of spending your life maximizing for, you know, I shall be remembered forever, which can sometimes incentivize poor behavior.
It's true.
Right? Like you're maximizing for like, no, don't be remembered forever. Just make this situation better. And I think that that's like kind of a good message for a game to have. It's like, hey, how about that? They don't need you anymore. So you can just like, and they're going to forget about you. And that's okay though, because you still did good things. The fact that people don't remember that you did good things, the fact that you're not immortalized doesn't mean that you didn't do those good things or that those good things cease to exist or have meaning or merit.
Yeah, and I know this is very philosophy 101 meets physics 101, but I've always maintained that the modern interpretation of if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Yes, obviously.
Right.
Like, and the reason I always, like I said, I know this is very like freshman year of college, first time in the big city kind of thing, but like the reason I always maintain that is for exactly what you just said. Just because no one was there to observe it does not mean that the far-reaching effects, the ripples, didn't reach the edge of the pond in an imperceptible way.
Right.
So it's like, I like the idea that, you know, the great grandchildren of the leaders who worshipped you may never even know that their great grandparents worshipped you, but they exist because you did the things that you did, right? So like the ripples go out and the world is saved and is allowed to be at all, because I guess in each area you kind of like create the first people, which is never really explained or addressed directly. But I like that idea of like my children now go on to lead their own lives and I'm done.
Right. Yeah. And so I mean I think that in that sense, like, you know, you could definitely read it as a pro religion, you know, con religion, but I choose to read it as pro good deeds. So final question then, does it hold up?
I mean, for me, yes, no question, just because I've played this game so many times. I will play it again. I think my issue with this game, which I'm going to go ahead and just say the designers did this on purpose and it wasn't just an amazing coincidence. This game becomes tedious for me right when it ends. Like when I was finishing the last area, I was just like, I'm kind of tired of this, y'all. And then it's like, oh, hey, you can go fight the boss. And I was like, okay. And like,
Okay.
you go and
I
fight
can
the
do
boss,
this.
but it's like, it gets tedious because it's like every time you have to use the lightning, you have to read the lightning text. And like every
Right.
time they have an offering, you have to read the offering text, and then you have to press the offering menu button. And like you can put up with that crap for a while, and then right around the time that I'm thinking to myself, if I have to read that freaking text one more time, it's like, oh hey, the last boss is here. So like for me, this game is somehow magically the exact right length. Like if it was, I think it's 6 areas. If it was 7 areas instead of 6, I don't know if I'd be able to beat it because like
There's too many.
yeah, I would like toss the controller down and just be like, all right, I get it. But it's just, for me personally, it's like just the right length. And I think that's why I've been able to replay it so many times over the entire span of my life, is because I'm like, well, I know right at the point I'm going to hate this game, I'll be done. And then I'll sit on it for another 2 or 3 years and then I'll play it again.
Yeah, for me, I would say that it definitely like held up. I think that the game was very, very enjoyable. I had a good time playing it. I would absolutely recommend it because it is very unique in the way it's put together. As far as like, I feel like I'm just a little disappointed just because it platforms well and it world sims well. It does neither spectacularly. So if you were looking for like a really, really good sim game, like play Sim City or Sim Earth or something like that, right?
This ain't that.
Right. And if you're looking for a really good platformer, play Mario. Don't play this. But if you're looking for a really interesting, unique blending of those two things, this is absolutely that. And what I would really, like I said, I'd really love to see is like a triple A release of this title. Just because I would love to see, for example, like when you're God and you go around, or when you're like platforming as your avatar, like to actually platform around the actual like map that you are building out, so instead of being the little angel flying around killing whatever, like you actually just kill monsters, just stuff like that, like a closer blending of those two things,
and I think if you modernized it in terms of like graphics and music and immersion, the key thing would be to not modernize it in terms of like what are all of the new things we've done in Sims, because I would not want to play SimCity as deep as SimCity has gotten, where I have to worry about crap like plumbing and then also be good at the platforming parts. Like I would still it would be crucial to me that when I was in the sim, I was still like the president of the company, not a middle manager, where they're like, what direction should we build in? That way, right? Like I wouldn't want to have to plop down individual houses like you do in SimCity.
Right. No, like I said, I think that the main thing for me to see it evolved is just like a greater degree of nuance of how you improving the world impacts the world. But I mean, I agree completely. Like the vagueness of like, go build over there, y'all go do or, like, for example, like if your avatar's running around and then all of a sudden, you just see a big minotaur coming at you and you're like, call lightning,
Yes.
Because it's just like, I can't do this all the time, but I'm still kind of like God. So lightning that thing, know. But the question, did it hold up? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I will continue to replay it. Like I would recommend this game to people.
We should play Legend of Zelda next.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone, there's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creeping with the edge of a smile.